Hello everybody, I'm Roxy and this is Chaotic People File. Let's talk about The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. This of course was my pick for my low-key overdue book club, link down below to that announcement for the month of September. If you saw that video and if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I went into this with the utmost trepidation. I was very afraid that I wasn't going to like it. Unfortunately, I was wrong because I really enjoyed this. I don't think it's without any flaws. I can think of a pretty big one. I'll get to that in a second. But general impression wise, I actually really enjoyed reading this and I would reread it, but I would skim a lot of sections if that gives you any clue. This was a bit roller coastery for me and I'll explain why, but before, let me tell you what this is about. This is about Thomas. He is a doctor and he is married to Teresa. Is that her name? Yes, Teresa, but they have a sort of open marriage because he has the theory that in order to have like a healthy marriage and a healthy life, he should have platonic sexual friendships, which is sort of friends with benefits, but there is a real friendship there. I think one of the aspects that I enjoyed the most is seeing that exploration be truly a friendship. There is another character here, Sabina, who is a true comrade in a way, and I just enjoyed that aspect of the book. The book focuses on Thomas, but then moves to Sabina and her, not boyfriend, but there is this guy that is really hung up on her and she has very complicated feelings towards him, but he's a nice guy and she likes him to an extent. It's a chain of people in a way because Teresa doesn't have much at all to do with the guy that Sabina is seeing, but they are sort of connected through Thomas, and the same with Thomas and the other guy. I was very worried that the women here were going to be caricatures. They were to a degree, but the thing is that this book is not about actual people. I don't think the men feel quite real either. It's more of an excuse to tell the story and think about the ideas in here. This is deemed a novel of ideas and I think that's right. You read it more for the philosophy than anything else. It has long paragraphs, even chapters of him going on about these ideas. And actually that was my favorite part. I always enjoy that type of writing when it's good, and I think in this case it was good. The characters are sort of an excuse to further the ideas through very thin plots. I must say there is period typical sexism going on in the way that he thinks of men and women as, you know, being inherently different and having certain traits, but I think the women and the men have the same significance in the novel and have the same degree of agency in the novel. Still, I did enjoy seeing where their lives ended up, and I think all of that makes for a pretty good, solid book. It is not a 5-star book by any means, and there are a lot of things with which I don't necessarily agree, but it did make me reflect upon certain things, and my favorite aspect was when it dealt with politics, and it's very interesting. I am always happy to see how big political changes affect or don't affect the everyday of the people, because we always get these very grand, epic, overarching narratives of people involved in resistance or soldiers, and I think there is value in those narratives, but I think it's also important to see how through all these changes and turmoil people still keep living their lives and how. And of course they are impacted, but not always necessarily turned on their heads. A lot of people just keep living, and I think that's just fascinating. That said, the infidelity aspect of it, I don't know. It just got ridiculous. Like whenever he stopped talking about the politics or the lives of the characters, he went onto these tangents. I just thought, why do you spend all this energy and page count thinking about those things. It was just so uninteresting to me. And I don't know if it's just my lack of personal interest or the way it was written was actually uninteresting. Heterosexual men aren't my personal area of expertise. Is fucking and whether they have mistresses, wives, or girlfriends such a big part of their identity and of their like brain power? Because that explains a lot. It's just that there are so many interesting stuff going on, like politics and the meaning of existence, that spending it so much on sex, I just thought it was a bit meh. And again, maybe it's the way it's written here, because I feel like I've read some other books where they explore desire and erotic relationships in a way that is much more interesting, but in here I just really skimmed those sections. But then there were others that I found fascinating, and so it was kind of a roller coaster. That said, I still really recommend this. I think it's an interesting book if you like novels of ideas, which I feel like they've gone out of fashion lately. We have the successors of these types of books, which would be these essay autofictional hybrids. I actually think it's quite naive. Some of the ideas in here were kind of naive, especially at the beginning. I felt like, oh, okay. But it was still fun. It was still engaging. I think it's easy to read, but still feeds your brain in some kind of way. So I actually really enjoyed this. I would reread it and I would recommend it, but I think it helps if you really care about romantic relationships, because if not, there are sections that you're just going to want to skim or skip. And I would say do it. But the political sections, the historical sections, and the sections upon being and the unbearable lightness of being, I thought were really strong. So that was up for the review. Now, I do want to talk about one specific point in particular, which is spoilers, so consider this part of the discussion, and it's the ending. I really enjoyed it. The fact that Teresa and Thomas went to this, it's not like an idyllic, right? This town, and they forged a life for themselves there with Karenin, the dog. Oh my god, the dog. I was so charmed. Although I was also okay, yeah, let's talk about Karenin. The transgender dog. I thought it was very interesting that Thomas wanted to name him Karenin because he wanted the dog, who actually was a female dog, to attach herself to Teresa. And then they referred to he the entire book. And it was such an unnecessary thing. And I think it ties back to these ideas of the erotic and the female and the male. It's not explored in any interesting way, but I did appreciate Karenin as a character. I really liked him. In the end, we all knew he was dying, and unlike in other books that I've read this year, I think in this case it was very well done. I just think it was a good part of the narrative because, again, it sort of reflects upon being and when to continue on living versus when it's time to let go, and companionship. Going back to that, I really enjoyed everything about the last section. Again, it was more about real connection and how these connections, not only between Thomas and Teresa, but with the whole town and their whole environment. I thought all of those connections were very interestingly explored. This idea of, after all that political upheaval, connection and stability is still possible. And I thought that was very well done. It was just charming. It turned into a more mature novel, for me at least, which sort of made me appreciate more the whole journey of it. It does feel like these characters have matured and have transformed. Appreciated two sections in particular, and I marked them. So part 7, Karenin's Smile, loved all of it. The second chapter, when it starts talking about Genesis and whether humans were granted control or guardianship and how that would change and all of the power implications of that, I really enjoyed that, because I feel like what this novel excels at is this contrast between the small and the really, really large. So I enjoyed that. Oh, this section, it's so lovely. Let me read it to you. Teresa kept stroking Karenin's head, which was quietly resting in her lap, while something like the following ran through her mind. There's no particular merit being nice to one's fellow man. She had to treat the other villagers decently, because otherwise she couldn't live there. Even with Thomas, she was obliged to behave lovingly because she needed him. We can never establish with certainty what part of our relations with others is the result of our emotions, love, antipathy, charity, or malice, and what part is predetermined by the constant power play among individuals. Those types of insights I really, really enjoyed. Whether you agree or not is not the point. To engage with these ideas is enough. The writing is not super flowery. It's not sparse either, but well, it is translated, so maybe this is a feature of the translation. But from what I've read by Milan Kundera, he has this style. It's very French, I was going to say, and actually his later books were written in French, so maybe he did connect with the language. It's just that balance between word salad and sparsity, and it works for me. It really works. So I think that's all that I have to say about this book. There were parts where I was rolling my eyes, and there were parts that I was just like, why would you tell me this? Like, I don't care. But overall, I think it's a very interesting book. I liked the writing and I liked the idea exploration in it. So I think it's safe to say that I still like Milan Kundera, and I will be reading more by him. Probably not very soon because there are many books that I need to be reading at the moment. However, I actually recommend it. It's the type of book that you can read differently depending on when you read it, not only as an age thing, but also when in your life. There are interesting explorations here, and it's fun, it's quick to read, it's not very long. So I don't know, it was a nice book to read, I think. And I always enjoy, I've realized, books that have simple stories, but that engage with ideas in a way that is effective. I don't think this will make my top 10 reads of the year, but it might make like a top 20, so take that as you will. So that was it. That was my review and discussion. I don't think I spoiled any major plot points, but I do reveal a couple of aspects of it. I don't know. Watch the discussion section at your own discretion. If you joined me this past month, thank you very much. I hope you liked it. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment box down below. I am very, very curious. I am surprised by how much I enjoyed it, clearly. So that's where I'm coming from. But if you hated it, please feel free to tell me. If you've read it before and you reread it, or you just read it a long time ago and didn't feel like rereading it, please tell me whatever it is that you think about this book. All thoughts can go down below. Or if you haven't yet and you want to leave a comment, you can tell me, does this book sound right up your alley? Or what do you think about Milan Kundera? Any and all comments down below. In the description box, you will also find the link to all my social media and things mentioned in this video. So that's it. See you next time.